And we are back in the 0 hour. You can call me RJ, you can call me Ray, as Bob Dylan sang. You can call me anything, it doesn't matter what you say. You're going to have to serve somebody. And I'll paraphrase and say it may be the 99% or it may be the 1%, but you're going to have to serve somebody. With us now is Casey Ray, who's director of the Future of Music Coalition. We're going to be talking about the FCC and net neutrality, which has been in the headlines a lot. Casey, who was a guest on my previous program, The Breakdown, is a musician, recording engineer, educator, journalist, and media pundit. He speaks on all sorts of issues related to the topic of new business models for artists, telecommunications policy, intellectual property. These are hot subjects for us. He works in a lot of these different sectors, working with people in them, trying to bring them together on these issues. He's an adjunct prof at Georgetown University and also on the board of directors of the Media Democracy Coalition and the National Alliance for Media, Arts, and Culture. Lastly, and by no means least, he currently records and publishes under the monitor The Contrarian and is the grand poobah of Looksy Turner Records. Casey, thanks so much for being with us.
Wonderful. Great to be here.
Yeah, well, you guys do great work, and by the way, I think it's great you're putting your music out. I have a kind of manager type who advises me for free, and a well-known manager, and he told me to take my music out of iTunes so people wouldn't be confused. Let me get branded with my new radio show first. So my music is right now, but I decided to take his advice. But listen, before we get to the FCC and net neutrality, and I already know I'm going to be frustrated. We won't have more time than we do, but. Just tell the folks briefly what the Future Music Coalition does, because I think you do great work.
Sure. We're a research, education, and advocacy organization for musicians. We work in two main areas, access and compensation. So access for musicians is typically access to audiences and also access to media platforms and technologies that can help them make contact with their fans, grow their careers, and take charge of their business. And on the compensation side, we look a lot at copyright law, we examine new business models, and we try to analyze and document trends in the industry so musicians have a fighting chance at understanding what's going on in this space.
And boy, I'll tell you, as you know, it's tough right now, and you've got Pandora and you've got Spotify. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to just make an offer right now to have you come back and talk about some of those issues, because I remember when we talked a couple years ago, you had identified 32 points of potential revenue in the cycle of a song on the internet. I mean, very cool stuff. And obviously anybody who deals with economics, technology, and music is going to be ahead on any program of mine. So, but for now, what's on the news right now is Tom Wheeler, the FCC, net neutrality. Basically, they're trying to shoot it down. Now it looks like they backtracked a little bit. What's your take on all of that?
Well, we've been examining and participating in the net neutrality conversation for so long that we were there before it even had a name. Basically, the idea is super simple. You can think about the phone lines. When you pick up the phone, you don't have to be put on hold until the rich people are done talking. The Internet, to us, should be a place where if you have a really great song, a really great idea, a really great innovation, application, whatever, that you can compete on a level playing field against the giant media companies and the giant technology companies. You don't have to pay a toll. You don't have to ask permission. The music that you create has a shot at reaching its intended audience, just like anything else that moves through the Internet. And the policy question can feel really complicated, but at the end of the day, it's really about who puts a price on access to culture. Is it Comcast? Is it Verizon? Is it AT&T? We're already paying $100 a month or more for a connection to the Internet. Shouldn't we be confident that the creativity that we express and that the amazing innovations that we create have a shot at reaching audiences? I think so. So the FCC has a tough job ahead of it in terms of what is the most bulletproof legal rationale it can produce to do the thing that we all want, which is to preserve an open Internet, keep those lanes of traffic open so creators and all kinds of media makers have a shot at doing what they do best.
Well, and I'll give you another analogy. You can tell me if it's right or wrong, but since a lot of this is about cable companies and others wanting to charge more for certain traffic and favorable treatment and so on. If I rent an apartment from you and you come in and you say, "Oh, by the way, I've changed the deal. Now you can only take one shower a week,"
Hmm.
and and you have to pay me more if you want to take more than one
Hmm.
shower. And he says, as one of the cable company owners said, "These are my pipes." I remember that quote. These are my pipes. No,
Yep.
if I pay you rent for the apartment, they're my pipes because I paid you for them. And if I take a lot of showers, well, that's going to average out. Other people don't shower as much. I just a clean freak. You don't have a right to charge me per shower. Is that a fair metaphor for what the
Sure.
companies are trying to do?
I mean, I think it's important to talk about bandwidth as a separate issue. Like, you can pay for how much bandwidth you use, and that's perfectly fine. But what shouldn't happen when you use the Internet is if you're paying for the pipe, if you're paying for access to the Internet from an Internet service provider like Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, or whomever, you should be able to freely access all of the lawful content that you want without having some of that content discriminated against because whoever's providing it hasn't made a special business deal with the ISP. And you can see that if net neutrality goes away, we could be looking at the cableization of the Internet, where they're selling premium packages, and it's a pay-to-play environment. Well, pay-to-play does not work very well for musicians historically. If you look at the consolidation of the commercial radio sector, you can see pretty clearly that that musicians were incredibly disadvantaged, no matter how talented. If it's a niche genre, forget about it. If it's something that doesn't fit the pop marketplace or isn't popular speech, forget about it. What net neutrality establishes is a baseline principle through which all content that moves through the Internet can reach its intended destination point. The Internet service providers would certainly still be allowed to charge customers for blazing speeds. They might be lying about what blazing means, but really at the end of the day, this is about, does content that moves through the Internet have an opportunity to reach the recipient who asked for it? You're paying for the pipe. You're not paying for Verizon or Comcast to tell you what you should be listening to, looking at, or reading.
So, but now that's a much better explanation. My whole pipe thing was way off base. But so now, first it looked like the FCC had completely caved on this issue. Now they've sort of partially, uncaved, and we're in a period of public comment. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. They have just opened a 120-day public comment period whereby anybody who has an opinion on the issue can tell the FCC what they think. That's actually a powerful democratic tool, and we highly encourage everyone to go to fcc.gov and do that. The interesting thing about this is a work in progress. What they have produced as proposed rules does not necessarily have to be the final rules. This is our opportunity to tell them that we want nothing less than real net neutrality. We can't have a slow lane, fast lane Internet. That would further disadvantage creators who have already had a kind of rough time readapting to the realities of the digital age, to say nothing of our economic realities. And this, to us, seems like it's a no-brainer. It's not a partisan thing. If people on both sides of the aisle use Twitter, for example. Where did Twitter come from? The open Internet. Somebody with a good idea came up with an application that became incredibly useful. And we just want the opportunity for musicians to make use of those new innovations and also make use of the incredible range of creativity that's at their disposal. And we want a fighting shot for future creators to be able to come into this conversation, this cultural dialogue, and not be disadvantaged.
Whether they're musicians or not. And I think that's a great point, and we're going to have to end it there. But Casey Ray, director of the Future Music Coalition, I hope you'll come back and talk with us again.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. And that is our show for today. I think we've hopefully given some food for thought on Ukraine. We've addressed the pressing issue of net neutrality. We've We've talked about the compromised state of public broadcasting, as well as the interesting movie Citizen Coke. The state of the war on terror is exemplified by the story of an innocent man in Lodi, California. I don't know what more we can give you, but by gosh, we're going to try. So please come back next week. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour. Thanks for listening.